Good afternoon. I'm here today to talk to you about national dietary guidelines, which are an interesting potential instrument to promote sustainable diets. I say potential because most current national dietary guidelines, they have a narrow view on the relationship between diet, health, and well-being. And there are at least three problems with most national dietary guidelines. First of all, they treat foods as mere carriers of nutrients, so they ignore the complexity of foods, of the food matrix, how nutrients are organized into foods. A second problem is that they overlook cultural dimensions of food. So they ignore the symbolic values of food, commensality. And what's important for our meeting here is that they ignore links between diet, food system, and sustainability. So what we tried to do in Brazil was to not to have these limitations. So I have to be brief, so I'll give some details on this new Brazilian food guide. There's a link there. I have some cards here with this link when you can get an English translation of these new dietary guidelines. So since we started to develop this 2 years ago, and since the beginning we had the intention to contemplate not just prevention of diseases, but we had a broad understanding of the relationship of the diets for physical health, for bodies, for souls, and for the planet, as we call in the title of our presentation. So what we expect as benefits for bodies, reduction of undernutrition, healthy weight, less chronic diseases, longer life, and better lives. For souls, just some examples: enhancement of food enjoyment, cultural diversity, autonomy, conviviality, interaction with the nature. And for the planet, protection of natural resources in general, less pollution, less emissions, less garbage. So a lot of benefits. There are some trade-offs, and I think Chris Murray said that. It was not so easy, but the good news is that I think we came out to a negotiation between these three zones, and with recommendations that contemplate these three aspects. And the second good news is that the recommendations we can replicate in other countries, particularly in countries where we still have food and meal-based diets. So this is the outline of the guide. We start with the chapter on principles. So from these principles, we derive the recommendations. Then we talk specifically about which foods, which meals. We have a chapter dedicated to mindful eating and commensality. And we have a chapter where we discuss how to overcome obstacles. There are several, but we can overcome them. So principles, we have 6 principles. The first I already mentioned, diet's more than consumption of nutrients. Diet fulfills physical but also mental and social human needs. Diet must derive from sustainable food system. That we heard a lot about this in this meeting. But also important to say that food enlightens consumers, but still more important, can empower citizens to remove the obstacles that I mentioned before. Food guides is also important that are based on a full range of evidence, going from historical evidence to randomized controlled trials. It's not just about randomized controlled trials. And finally, food guides must be consistent and contribute to guarantee of the human right to adequate and nourishing foods. So we try to do it as simple as possible, this. And then to make things simple, we divided everything people can eat in 6 categories, 3 categories of foods and 3 categories of food products. So I will detail for you in the next slides what they are. Our first recommendation is about foods. So we consider unprocessed food, minimally processed, and moderate processed foods. Moderate processed is when processing subtracts some part of the food, like white rice. In the case of minimally processed food, you don't subtract, you have the whole food, and unprocessed food is not modified by industrialization. So what is we have 4 recommendations, just 4. So the first one, make foods, real foods, so we are not including food products at this point, make foods the basis of your diet. And we have three qualifications for foods. So the first one is great variety. The second is mainly of plant origin. And the third is the less processed, the better. And then we explain to the reader why, if they opt for these great variety and plants and less processed, they can benefit their health and also the environment and also the social environment. So let's take the example of great variety. When you stimulate variety of foods, you complement foods with different nutrients, as we know, but we also promote biodiversity. So then that was the idea of synergistic effects of the recommendations. The next recommendation is about one food product. It's a very special one, which is culinary ingredients. Sometimes this is people confuse processed food, say everything is bad. It's not that. Culinary ingredients, of course, they are nutritional imbalance. We are talking here about fats, oil, sugar, and salt. But nobody consumes these as products. I mean, what they use is use this to prepare, to cook, to season foods and convert them into dishes and meals. And without this, you can cook. Only someone that don't cook thinks that it's possible not to have these products. So what's the key word here is moderation, small amounts. Because if you use too much of these culinary ingredients, you dilute the potential and the nutrients in the foods. The third recommendation is about what we call processed ready-to-consume products. These are simple products, simple whole foods, plus sugar, plus fat, but they are essentially foods. Examples, cheese, simple breads, fruits and syrup, for instance. So what our recommendation for these products is, again, moderation, small amounts. But more important, having these products not to replace foods, but to make part of the meals. We talk a lot about food processing here, and we try to qualify food processing. So we say that food processing behind all these categories of foods, it can be very beneficial, because the purpose of this processing is to extend the ratio of foods, like minimally processed and moderate processed foods. You extend the ratio of foods. It's very important for food security, but also we can make easier and more interesting and more pleasurable the preparation of foods into dishes and meals. So using these 5 types of foodstuffs, we can make this rice and beans. That's typical in Brazil. We can have this pasta with vegetables, typical in Italy. And I tried to get an example of Scandinavian food, but I mean, I did this yesterday. It's, maybe, sorry, it's not so beautiful, I would like to say, to show. I mean, after having so nice food here, so this pictures, sorry for that. So the 6th category is the one we need to take care. And then some people call junk food. We prefer to call ultra-processed, ready-to-consume products. And we present a definition of this. Essentially, we are talking about not about foods, but about formulation of ingredients without the food matrix. So these products, they don't have food, whole food, or they can have some peanuts on top of the products. But essentially, they are formulation of fats, oils, hydrogenated fats, fat replacers, and lots of additives. So these are ultra-processed products. Examples, several types of snacks, soft drinks, confectionery, energy bars. The list is enormous. One problem with these ultra-processed products is that they are nutritionally imbalanced, okay? But other problem that is still more important is that they replace foods. So you cannot use them to prepare your meals because they are ready to consume, and they don't go well with other foods. So then when you don't get when you get them, you don't get the right thing. So then you lose in the 2 ways. So what is the recommendation we do for this type of products? Avoid them. Avoid them. And why we should avoid? Because they're nutritional imbalance, because they are manufactured and marketed to be overconsumed. So they are associated with overconsumption of energy and obesity. But also, they are typical mindless eating products. I mean, you eat them alone, working, doing other things. So there are other problems on this. And also, it's important for the environment. So they stimulate a type of agriculture that has a high environmental impact. And then you have all the garbage, all the energy, water, et cetera, et cetera. So we summarize the 4 recommendations in just one golden rule. We say, always prefer foods and fresh dishes to ready-to-consume products, and particularly avoid ultra-processed products. So, but what about dishes? How people will eat this, all these 5 types of foodstuffs? Then we took a very innovative approach. Instead of saying 3 servings of this, 2 servings of that, we went to our most recent national dietary survey, and then we studied all the population. We had 30,000 people, 24-hour recalls, and then we selected those people that were among the first quintile of the consumption of these ready-to-consume products. So we took people that really had foods and meals as the basis of their diet. And then we took pictures of breakfast, of lunch, of dinner, so several pictures. And we are not prescriptive, so we don't say, go for these types exactly, but we say, use this as a model. And then we provide orientations, how to diversify the diet. So taking one type of beans and use several types of beans or lentils, for instance. Taking grains, rice, wheat, grains, corn, roots and tubers, variations, very important, different types of vegetables. And then we talk not about only the nutrient properties of these foods, but how to prepare them, how to make them delicious. So fruits, we talk about milk, we talk about meat. Meat is the only, among this population, they have an almost perfect diet. They have 2 problems, too much meat and too much salt. So then we say to people, even if you belong to this group of more traditional diet in Brazil, you need to reduce meat and salt. But the rest is, you don't need to change. Of course, if you don't belong to this group, you have to join this group. About water, I would say having no bottled water, please. We don't recommend bottled water. I mean, we recommend water like we have here. And we say also to people that if they have foods and meals, they'll get a lot of water from the food. Of course, they don't if they go for snacks. Then we have a 4th chapter where we discuss mindful eating and commensality. So then it's a beautiful chapter because you talk about pleasure most of the time. And we have 3 statements. Eat regularly and mindfully, eat in pleasant surroundings, eat when possible in company. So I think that's the mention of diet. We try to make it very important. And then we discuss how to overcome obstacles. We have a very honest discussion. We don't say these recommendations are easy, you can do this tomorrow. No, it depends only on you. No, in some cases it depends on people, and some cases depends on the environment. And then we address people as individuals and also as citizens. Citizens that want to change, that should change the society. So then citizens that should fight for policies, for regulation of marketing, for instance, and other things that make easier to follow the recommendation. We discuss supply, we discuss cost. We have a long discussion on culinary skills. And we treat culinary skill as an asset, as a capital of the population. And we say to people, learn, respect, enjoy, and share the arts and skills of making meals at home. So I think it's very important to rescue this. We did this for breastfeeding. We need to do this for traditional dietary partners. Time is another problem, information, propaganda. At the end, we have 10 steps. So we try to summarize all the orientation in these 10 steps. We start by saying, make a variety of plant foods the basis of your diet. Use oils, fat, sugar, and salt in moderation to convert foods into dishes. Limit or avoid ready-to-consume products. Eat freshly cooked meals regularly, mindfully in pleasant places. Enjoy meals in company. Buy food in places that offer a variety of fresh, locally produced foods. Learn, value, practice, and share the art of cooking. Give the pleasure of eating a central place in your life. Choose places to eat out that serve freshly cooked, not fast food places. Be aware of information orientation from sources of conflicted interest. And finally, we offer to the reader It's about 80 pages, the guide. It's short, but we offer at the end further reading. So what we do, we selected some books that inspire our work, and we provide a summary of each of these books. Several books here have authors that are participating in our meeting. So, and then we also provide some reference on food processing in health. That's a very understudied topic. So then we provide reference of work we have been done in the past. And I just want to say that this is a collective work. So I'll give a list of part of my colleagues that developed this. And just 2 minutes. Thank you very much.